You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 44, Player Agency and the Illusion of Choice. Today we talk about player agency and choice. We discuss what player agency in games really means and how it affects the story. We also discuss that player agency can be driven back into your predetermined choices. We apologize for the audio in this episode, as it seems that we've gotten a fairly poor recording for this episode. The topic is good regardless, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me in person, he knows which door you will pick, even when he gives you the choice. Jared.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing today, Jared?
Not bad. How about you?
I'm doing great. A little bummed about developments here in Chicago, but aside from that, you can't do too much.
Yeah. Well, clearly, it's a situation.
It is what it is.
It is what there's nothing we can do about it.
No, there's nothing we can do about it.
We can scream at it.
We can scream at the moon.
Our listeners.
We can scream at the moon.
Displeased.
We're displeased. But
with the untenable
but then again, I think everybody's a little displeased with where they're at.
I think everyone.
In this entire year and everything that's gone on.
2020. I mean, like literally, there's a shirt that just shows 2020 as a dumpster fire. I want to get that shirt.
There have been shirts that show 2020, 0 out of 5 stars, would not recommend.
You know what's funny? It's like, Allie and I had a year 2019. It was just like, I forget what we were encountering, but holy crap, we were like, this is a terrible freaking year.
Mm.
Then we hit 2020. And we were like, oh my God, it can get so much worse. But actually in the course of 2020, our lives have improved, but amongst all these restrictions, Allie got a promotion, I got a promotion,
I think you get some good and you get some bad, but
it's just a year.
Again, it's a year at the end of the day.
As one of my bosses says, I don't think when the ball drops on 2021 anything will be any different. And I'm like,
that's true.
Good point.
That's very true. I think we'll have a fuck 2021 meme next year when it shows up. So
yeah, but I think that'll only be for a couple of months, and then hopefully Pfizer will send out their vaccine, because isn't there a Russian vaccine that's already out?
No, Pfizer did just recently announce their vaccine, and so fingers crossed they'll hit mass development. Well, sorry, it is in mass production right now. If anyone's listening, that is in mass production, like all the other phase 3 vaccines are, in case they show efficacy. And so hopefully that can hit distribution, January and February.
Here's hoping.
I'll
be in line.
I'm praying. I'd like my life to look something more normal than what it is right now.
But I did make a promise to myself. If there's a vaccine, it was funny, some people were like, are you going to be the first in line? I was like, no. I'm going to let people who are actually
need it.
Actually need it. I mean, I'm 35-year-old. Okay, I'm not in the best shape or anything like that, and I smoke, so that doesn't help. But comparatively to an 85-year-old,
yeah,
I want them to get I want my mom to get it first.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive her to the Walgreens. That's how they're gonna distribute this. Walgreens and CVS.
Walgreens already has a message if you call Walgreens.
Do they?
They had one before the vaccines ever came out. But that said whenever one is available, we'll start distributing it. So anyways, a little bit of Corona talk there.
Corona talk. It's what's in this here.
But aside from that, we did have a listener send us an email about some of our episodes and give us some episode topics that we're going to talk about in a couple of coming episodes. So Gary, shout out to you. Thank you for
shout out to Gary.
Thank you for writing in.
Yes,
we did reply back to you, try to give you some more food for thought on your topics there. And hopefully that help you out, but we will spawn some episode topics off of them and actually do some episode topics. So
I was very excited to get that email.
The ones that are going to come up out of it are going to be when a player leaves the table or leaves your game, like how do you deal with that?
Yep.
And the other one's going to be improving your side stories and encounters.
Oh yeah, I like it was funny, Gary, if you're listening, and we hope you are. Aaron sent me hey, we got an email from him. Like, I cranked that. I was so excited the minute he sent it. Like, I get very excited about when we get emails from listeners. It's for me, it's so much fun to help. I mean, like, I enjoy helping out all GMs and players through our podcast, but to help out a singular person, I just get really excited about it. Like, unordinarily excited.
Well, it's sharing the pot of knowledge.
It is. Like, I'm going to, like, my wife, I'm like, babe. She's like, okay, calm down.
Easy there, killer.
Easy there, killer. My wife is my calm.
But today we're going to talk about a topic that I think is very interesting, that I've thought about a bunch of times. We've talked about it before, and I listened to a different podcast, and they sort of brought up at the very, very end of it, and I was like, all right, we got to talk about this. We've got to bring this up right now, and that is player agency and the illusion of choice.
We got to bring this up right.
Yes, and the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because what's very interesting in a game. So one of the things you don't want to ever do is restrict your players. But
when Aaron's about to get philosophical.
But we do restrict our players in a lot of the things we do. We restrict them through the actions in session 0.
Mm-hmm.
We restrict them by feeding them information. So your goal as a GM is to try to eliminate the unknown, which is what will your players do.
Mm-hmm.
So again, shameless plug going back to episode 2, KYP.
KYP.
Know your players, okay?
Know them.
And in addition...
If you don't, it's time to sit down and do some bonding.
Seriously. And in addition to knowing your players, knowing what will drive them, knowing which directions they will go, what hooks they'll take, you got to put out things that will direct them in the direction that you want them to go, which makes them feel like they have the choice in the agency, but it's also an illusion.
Yeah, the choice is in itself in a role-playing game, except for there's one type of role-playing game that typically has a lot more choice, but the type of storytelling is different. So the sandbox game, which is wide open, means generally that you've created some sort of city or country or universe, for those who are really quite bold. Yes, I used the word bold. For those who are really quite bold, they create their own universe and they say, here you go, do with it as you will. And it really gives the players a ton of choice. Now, if you have very self-motivated players, they're off like a missile. We're gonna destroy this evil empire. We're gonna start up our own, transport business. We're gonna do X, Y, and Z. And really, as a storyteller, your responsibility comes down to creating consequence and roadblocks. It's a lot of on the fly because you don't know where your players are going. Now, even in that, you will have the illusion of choice. So your players say, and I'm going to use a sci-fi setting for this. So let's take Firefly. Great system, great story. I love that. I know people are probably like, yes, Firefly, and it's like, yes, Firefly, but I'm not a brown coat. Oh, don't leave out the alliance. A lot of people just turned off the podcast.
And I'm done.
And I'm done. He's not a brown coat. But like, I love Firefly. I love the entire series. Fantastic. If you haven't watched it, you need to. It's that great. So the team says they're going to set up their own. They want to set up their own interplanetary transporting company. They're going to focus on, I don't know. I'll take a tip out of Firefly. They're going to transport livestock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what they want to do as a group. They want livestock. Awesome. So essentially, after that first night where the goal is established, you are going to start developing in your head very quickly what are the roadblocks. Is there a cattle union? Are there livestock agents? There are here in the United States. Maybe you go and rent a whole bunch of Kevin Costner movies, because let's admit it, the cowboy is perfect for Kevin Costner. That's what he does. He is like the 20th century cowboy. Mm. I'm waiting for you to disagree with me here, but you're not. So like it is him. So you're gonna start doing your research, and you're gonna very quickly evolve the situation to actually create a story. Yes. Out of this livestock. So there's going to be the evil livestock agent who wants to stop them transporting black market cows. I really hope people are laughing at this black market.
This sounds ridiculous, but I'm going to let you keep going.
Well, it sounds ridiculous, but in the world of Firefly, actually it fits very well. Like, black market cows is probably a thing in Firefly. Because the Alliance probably said, well, you can have 90 cows. Well, I need more than 90 cows. So you're already developing a story. You're off to the races. And what you're going to do is you're going to place those obstacles in the way, whereas the players think that ultimately they had the choice. Yeah, they had one primary choice. They chose what the goal was. And then you decided, this is the trajectory we're going to follow. This is the stuff I'm going to put in your way, and these are the ways that you're going to defeat said thing. So livestock agent, you've got multiple sets, and you're going to bring down the amount of doors that they can choose. Because in a true sandbox, the player should essentially be able to, we're gonna go visit his supervisor, because he's kind of corrupt.
Yeah.
We're going to go visit his supervisor. We're going to turn in evidence of his corruption. That's what we're going to do. And bam, goodbye, evil livestock agent. Now, in a sandbox game, you can do that. You can go for that. Knock yourselves out. But again, it's the illusion of choice. When I offer you door A, B, and C, and my players say, nah, we're going to go for D. Mm-hmm. I'm just developing a new story off of that. Because again, you've selected the goal. Mm-hmm. You said, okay, we're gonna turn him into his supervisor. And I've said, okay, very quickly, I'm developing, this is what you must do. Because you have to go visit the supervisor who lives on one of the high-class worlds that you can't get onto very easily. Or I said, in my mind, I'm already creating your story, and I'm giving you doors A, B, and C again. Or I might shut off your D completely. The supervisor's in on the corruption. So you're back to choice A, B, and C. So
you've already set the choices up, and all routes lead back to those choices.
They can either lead back to that choice, or I can say, well, you know what? The players came up with a better story than I did. Who'd have thunk it?
And here's the best thing. The players don't know.
The players don't know. They have no clue. They think you're a freaking amazing... You're a magician. You're like, holy crap, he really made the livestock agent supervisor. Yeah, I did. About 5 seconds after you mentioned this plan, I made up the livestock supervisor. Where he lived and yada yada. Now, in the sandbox, it requires so much fancy dancing. I mean, you gotta be quick on your feet. You won't have a lot of opportunity to engage in some of the techniques and tactics that we've advised in previous podcasts. So, like, some of the things are going to be short. Not short. I don't want to say that. They're not going to be available. The spotlight moment. Okay. If you have literally a week to develop something because of sandbox games, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really difficult. You have to be an experienced storyteller to be able to pull that off. And I'm hoping that maybe some of our inexperienced storytellers are listening to this, GMs, DMs, Masters of Ceremonies, or as I'm now reading a new book, Mother.
Mother?
Oh, yeah. Aliens RPG, baby.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I need something to be able to creep me out while I'm living in DC. I need scary. And this is it's funny because it's not terrifying at all, but that's what they call their storytellers because that was the name of the computer in the movie. It was Mother.
Interesting.
So that's a new that's a new title for storytellers. Mother. I was like, I will gladly take on this title. Like I want to play this game just so I can be Mother. So really, the illusion of choice for our inexperienced groups, the sandbox game I would not recommend. You think that it's awesome, and it's maybe your older sibling, maybe a friend does these kind of games, but look at the effectivity of how they do these games, and decide for yourself where your experience lies. That's because it takes so much fancy dancing.
I would say that out of all the games we played, there was a period of time when we only played sandbox games.
Yeah.
And the problem with the sandbox game is it does require that all of your players are going to be in on making choices.
Yes.
If one of your players is not good on making choices, again, KYP, it's going to be a really rough time for them because they're basically along for the ride and nothing feels good for them. Like the stories aren't rewarding for them. It just feels like, I felt this myself when we played in a lot of the sandbox games that we played in, is that that none of the stories had payoff for me.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, that was my failure as a storyteller. Granted, I was much more inexperienced than I am now. But yeah, when your player is not, it's hard to make those spotlight moments. It's hard to make the player have the capability to really affect something, and people get lost. And I've seen it. I've seen it in games with a very experienced storyteller. He wasn't the best storyteller in the world, but he was very experienced. He would literally let players sit the whole night and not do one action. Now, for that player came back every week and was very happy. That's what they wanted to do. Essentially, they wanted to hang out with friends and roll some dice every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we... The storyteller never made that night special for that person. He never did. And that was very lacking. He always liked to play the sniper or the observer. Somewhere where he was far back from the distance. But he never made a sniping mission. He never made those spotlight moments. And so there are so many techniques from the story that lack when you just have this giant sandbox game, because you have to so rapidly, so quickly move things around.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to create spotlight moments. You don't get to do the dialogue moments because you're literally working week to week. Now, it's kind of funny because I used to be such a big sandbox game guy. Used to be. Now I've seen the glories of more storytelling. Because sandbox, and there's some people out there that are going to be, sandbox is the greatest thing, blah, 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 blah. And I get that. I felt that way for so long. Sandbox was the shit. But now that I've seen the glories of, like, actually storytelling, because sandbox, you're dropping characters into an environment and saying, do with it as you will.
Even if you're doing, like, an epic story that fits in, like, a city and a sandbox, again, the players are still going to make choices, and then once players make choices, you just put up those railroad tracks, and you sort of set them on the track to get to the end of the choice.
Exactly.
I mean, it's always, that's how it is. It's so much more player driven in that world, as opposed to the actual story driven story or a story with a very focused goal to it.
Right. And for those storytellers that have players that like that is their way, that's their KYP. Okay, then that's the way you got to do it, because it always comes down to your players in the end.
Mm-hmm.
What are your players going to enjoy? What are you going to enjoy?
So the players who like, I think, more agency tend to drift more towards the sandbox game. Yes. Hey, I want the sandbox game. I want to be able to make more choices. Okay. But you can give a player who likes to make a lot of choices a lot of freedom in a focused game.
Yes, you can. It's completely plausible. So, drifting away from sandbox, because I think I've said my piece on sandbox, to more story-oriented games. I guess your average or your typical game, rather than sandbox is just a way of doing it. I don't want to say linear, because linear doesn't do enough justice.
Linear isn't what you're trying to go for in a story-driven game. You could do linear, okay? Because at some point the players will get... So the way it works in a very well constructed game, in my opinion, is the players are given a lot of options to get them started, and then we always you showed this with the iceberg drawing there. Yeah. So you start at the tip of the iceberg. What is the problem? Okay, mission statement, day one, first couple of minutes of the game. What is your mission? Know it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then once you do that, you say, well, I think that so and so knows some information, and so knows some information. Here's a dossier on some information, and here's they docked the spaceship in Port C, and that's they were attacked by, give me something, space pirates, and they stole all the cattle. Okay, but sons of bitches, and you're gonna run cattle for us? Like, you might want to figure out what the heck happened to that spaceship. Give them some options on how they're going to accomplish the mission. So now I'm going to give you the mission. You're going to go smuggle cattle.
Yeah.
Okay? Instead of have a player choose that option, I'm going to give you that choice. And I'm going to tell you, by the way, there have been people trying to smuggle cattle. There's a spaceship in Dock C of people who failed. And otherwise, you can talk to the corrupt supervisor, and you can do this. Give them a couple people they can get started with, and then boom, from there, they talk to them and the web grows.
And it does. And what I feel was more story-driven games rather than sandbox is that you provide them guidance on door A, door B, door C. Here are the things that I'm knocking around. I've been knocking around equipment like since Aaron walked in the door. Just fun fact for our listeners, I meant to take a 1 hour nap today. I ended up taking a 4 hour nap today. Aaron walked in the door and I'm like,
It was the walking dead when I walked
legitimately could have shot me and been like, looked at the court and just been like, zombie.
He was already
dead. And they're going to be like, no, sir. No, you were not there. He was a zombie.
I had to do it.
I had to do it. He told me if I ever turned into a zombie, kill me. Be a great freaking defense show. That'd be interesting. No, but so with more storytelling driven, the great thing is that you can set up ahead of time. I'm going to give them door A, door B, door C. Now, you're not eliminating the agency of your players going off to door D. You are not taking that away from them. Because even in a story-driven game, your players can go off the chain. They can go off the chain and be like, you know what? You have that one player who's just like, I'm going to go to this guy's supervisor and complain. Oh, yeah. And the rest of the players are like, great idea. We don't even have to unholster our weapons. And they might get into that. And that's where it requires dancing. Fancy dancing. Now, when you get to door D, just like as I explained in the sandbox, when they're like, hey, we're going to go and we're going to talk to the person's supervisor because this is the plan that they had, they get there and the supervisor's corrupt too. No, I'm not going to turn him in because he's paying me 50% of what he's doing. Of course, as a criminal supervisor, I'm not going to inform you. I'm just going to say, thank you, I'll take down. This is very illuminating evidence. Thank you so much for this. And they walk out and they're like, victory is ours. Let's go drinking at the bar. And, the next day that agent's just walking right up like, yeah, now you're going to pay me $200 because you tried to turn me in. And you are guiding them back to door A, B, and C. You can rally with the space pirates. You can fight with the Union against him. You can murder him in a dark alley. I'm giving you A, B, and C. You
didn't take away the choice.
You didn't.
But you skillfully handled it so they got rerouted back into the choices that you're hoping they will take.
Now you might be like, why the heck do I want to route them to A, B, and C? Because A, B, and C choices behind those doors, you have pre-prepared, dialogue. You have pre-prepared spotlight moments. You have pre-prepared encounters, combat, because if they go route A, they're going to have to fight in the bar. They go route B, they're going to have to fight a dragon. They go route C, they're going to have to fight a ghoul. you have those pre-prepared moments. The ghoul. Why a ghoul? Well, because one of my team is a paladin, and he is fantastic against undead, and he hasn't gone smashing undead in probably 3 sessions. He needs that moment. And my Viking warrior that goes with him, I don't know why there's a Viking warrior and a paladin on the spaceport, but there are.
The other thing, too, the great thing, is if you go Route D could just give you straight information that tells you should go Route C.
It could. You guide them to the route that you feel is the best one. Like, you're like, man, A, I really wrote that one up. That has great dialogue. I'm prepped. I got maps. I got everything. C was like when I was putting the icing on the cake and I don't have a map yet. I really want them to go Route A. Route D, the supervisor could be like, I'm not going to do anything about it, and the Union is under my thumb. So there goes Route B, too. So now I'm leaving you with options, choice A and C. Murder him in the cold, dark alley, or A, work with the Space Pirates to get him. The Space Pirates, I have like a ton of stuff. And while you're eliminating choices, and here's the thing, you are going to feel sometimes as a storyteller, and I fell into this pit as a young man. I'm eliminating choices from my players. One of my players used to look at me and said, I do role-playing because it's video games without the controller.
But even in a video game...
Well, the thing is I'm taking away choice to increase your fun. That's why I'm doing this. I'm choosing Route A because Route A is the way of adventurers. Route A is you have to rally a space pirate to join with you. I have cool NPCs that you can meet that are so detailed and vibrant. I have maps that you can see. I have music planned and cued. I have dialogue that will really wrap your players into this experience. I am doing this so you have fun. I'm not doing it because I'm a jerk. I cheat because I'm a jerk. I don't do that. I don't take away choices because I'm a jerk. No, I'm kidding. I cheat for the benefit of my players.
And even in that case, you're not taking away the choices. You let them take their shot.
Mm-hmm.
You let them do their thing. And had they, again, this is the thing, the golden rule being that you can always take their idea, meaning go to the supervisor, try to have them do that. And you go, that's a great idea. I can have the supervisor do all this other stuff. It doesn't mean that your encounters that you had already pre-prepared can't happen. It means that you might need to reorganize how the encounter happens behind door A, B, and C. But you might still have to fight the ghoul because the ghoul is in the wrecked spaceship on the...
Or maybe the supervisor, you're like, dude, that's a great freaking idea. Then they'll have a supervisor ally. This is how they get their licensing, for the cattle. Mm-hmm. He'll give them free licensing because he helped them eliminate a problem. Now, you can take their idea and modify it. You can say, well, I really want them to murder him in a cold, dark alley. Why does the supervisor not just have him murdered? Well, I got these people, and the supervisor says, I can't fire him because he's friends with my boss, the lieutenant. So the only way to get rid of this guy is cold, dark alley. Holy shit, are we working for one bad guy against another bad guy? Because his supervisor just told us to murder him in a cold, dark alley.
By the way, that's like always the best moment is when you finally end up in a dark place, or he's like, come with me for a drink afterward. We should discuss this information. And then he looks at you and goes, I need you to kill this man.
Kill him. Because it's something human.
Yeah.
It's an experience that actually occurs. Because trust me, the truth is stranger than fiction. I as a true crime buff, I guess, I don't want to use the word buff.
You're an enthusiast.
Enthusiast of true crime. There have been people who literally murder one another over, he spilled orange juice on me one night. The truth is stranger than the fiction. It happens. And this supervisor think about it. You're getting cut out. He's paying your lieutenant. And this is a story. And it's more than a sandbox. And you can take their choice and mold it into your own, or you can guide them back to the choice, which is so well pre-prepared that they're going to have a blast.
Make sure they've got some wealth of those choices.
Yes.
You should not have one choice that works and every other choice
If you've got
sucks.
one choice, you got a problem.
Yes. So in giving them a couple of choices that work to get to the end goal, that's where the illusion of choice comes in. That's where it feels like I made the choices that I needed to make, and I chose the path that I wanted. And behind the scenes, you're going there, stroking your beard, or or sipping your tea, or doing whatever maniacal thing you're going to do. As they say that, you go, yes, you did choose to do that, and I didn't have any influence on it whatsoever.
None whatsoever. But it's I truly enjoy the that is what happens when you turn away from the mic for 2 seconds. It gets really dim real quick. When you skillfully manage to turn players' choice or guide them towards the right choice, mind you, your players, one of the things you're going to sit there and as a storyteller, because I've done it, I'm like, oh my god, I'm shoehorning my players into... This is when I was evolving as a storyteller. I was like, oh my god, I'm shoehorning them into A, B, and C. I'm a terrible freaking person. Oh my god, this is what I rallied against for so many years as a sandbox storyteller. And then when I started doing it, I was like, oh my god, my players, look at the smiles on their faces. I got Aaron scared to go outside because he's worried there's a freaking Wendigo.
We're none the wiser to it.
That's the thing. Your players aren't wise to it. When I created Red Lake, which arguably has become my flagship game, and it's interesting. We have this thing in our gaming group that we call flagship games, which are the ones that if I could get a trophy for that one, that's the one I'd want the trophy for on the mantle. It's my flagship. Red Lake was a great exercise in I put them in an environment, and they thought they had complete agency. They were like, oh my god, we're in a Native American reservation. And we have to track down the monster. Okay, we have complete agency. They did, but I had so many paths to them. But I allowed their agency to win, and we've discussed this many a time, and that's why I'm going to rush through it. Aaron makes a sudden choice to go find this, to investigate this person. As Aaron made this choice, because he investigated one of the 2 Wendigo that were in the city, there was always 2. City area. Aaron, for me, it seemed randomly picked this guy to investigate. I gave him complete agency. He arrived at the time the person reacted within the bounds that I would allow him to react. Now, one might say, well, you just let your player go off. You didn't guide him back to A, B, and C. No, I didn't. I let him take Route D. Why? Because I always knew I had another Wendigo in the area. This one was the Wendigo, and the story was so much better because I knew the Wendigo. When I crafted that NPC, I knew this NPC. He was a guy who had always been made fun of because of his heritage. He was mixed race, in an entirely homogenous society. You're going to have that. You're going to have bullying. I've worked as a teacher for many years. Trust me, there's bullying about this. And he was a simple kind of guy, and he was a very average person, and he'd risen up to a vice president rank, and he's always been just short of that moment. And Aaron and Brian and Ken got to see that moment. They got to see the person who was just had a sad life, and just he wanted to be a little bit better. He didn't mean for it to go that far. He didn't mean to be infected by a Wendigo spirit and then murder one of his own friends, someone he thought was a mentor. And it devastated him. And it made the villain human. Creating an NPC. And what I did was I gave them door C. I had planned already that this human being was going to be like this. And if they ever caught him outside of his Wendigo form, this is how it would go. He would completely admit to what he'd done. He was going to admit it. He's a good, well, not a great person, but a decent guy when not cannibalizing his friends. Because I always had choice I always had the other story out there. The game wasn't going to conclude there. No matter what, I wanted my players to have the experience of catching the Wendigo and being like, job well done. And then by the next night, they hear screams in the dark. That's what I wanted. That was the choice. That was the moment I wanted. I wanted my players to be like, we killed the Wendigo. The city is safe. And then that very night, they hear screaming in the dark. Oh God, there's two. That's the moment I wanted, and I guided them right to it. Agents are the illusion of choice and agency. Trust me, you are doing this for the right reasons. I am imploring you. If you could see my hands, I would be holding on to my mic right now. I implore you to look at this and just realize that you are taking those choices away. You are doing these things. You are cheating, just like I cheat on dice rolls, for their betterment, so they have a good time.
But Jared's, you're 100% correct. And again, the way that you did it there was elegant. It was clean. It was none the wiser to us. And again, that's all you have to do is you just have to make it elegant and clean. When they choose the other thing, don't tell them they can't do it. Just make it elegant and clean. Just make it, you got there, and then move them right back into where you need them to be.
If you are going to sidestep, because I've seen many storytellers do that and be like, I've actually seen two storytellers in my many years of playing who literally the supervisor's in on it. They didn't let us go to the actual person, interact with that person, the livestock supervisor. They would just be like, he's in on it. Elegant and clean. You are not looking for hack and slash. You're not, I cut you off from option B. No, let us think that we have the agency of choice. Let us go to the livestock supervisor and let us be like, hey, we have all this evidence, and let him be like, oh no, it's really cool. So you can craft that moment of the next day, that corrupt livestock agent walks back in and is like, now you're going to pay me $500.
Exactly. And again, it's just, go back. There's a lot of episodes we've made kind of callbacks to here. Go back to the improvising episode and kind of dancing on your feet. It's around episode 4 or something like that. I mean, a lot of our earlier episodes kind of cover the skills that you would need for this. And all that you're going to learn here is that the next time I do a story, my players will likely want to talk to the supervisor. Okay? My players will likely want to talk to this person. So all those people need to do is be part of the NPCs you prep in a future game.
Yes.
And they just flow back into the story that you need them to go to.
Exactly.
All roads lead back to where you want them to go.
And I will tell you this, and I don't know, Aaron, have we ever discussed the kitchen story?
The one where you made the
entire kitchen staff.
The entire kitchen staff. We talked about unused NPCs.
Okay. So we've probably covered it, but to rehash, on last episode. Okay, I had created a story where, and in this KYP, know your players, my players have a habit of assuming poison. It's actually just something my players I've noticed do when they're like, poison. Totally doable. And they do investigate poison for some odd reason. I don't know why. For example, in Red Lake, Aaron thought that the water had been poisoned in some way. A toxin had found its way into the water.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to investigate that path. I mean, I gently guided him back to it's not the water.
It took a couple times for us to get off the concept of water, but we did investigate it because again it was the nature of the game itself. Mm-hmm. I'm sort of hand waving over a lot of information here,
Tons.
But Jared did kind of basically dissuade every time I tried to look into poison. He simply explained why it would not have been poison. Mm-hmm. He didn't ever tell me it's not poison, stop looking at it.
Not ever. I explained why poison would be unlikely in our consigliere moments, and we've discussed this. Sometimes supplying out-of-game knowledge to your players is okay. It's okay. What you're doing is you're guiding them. But they still really want to check on the poison. Okay, no problem. I'm just explaining to you And I guess it softens the blow when it's not freaking poison. Shoot, I lost my train of thought.
Kitchen staff.
Kitchen staff. How could I lose that one? So I had, just like I was preparing A, B, and C, I prepared C. My players go and investigate the kitchen staff because they like poison. They think it's poison. I had created like a full complement of what you would actually need to run a 24/7 kitchen. I mean, like literally, you could have taken the schedule and applied it to like some head of state, and they've been like, yes, this is an acceptable. I have 24-hour kitchen staff with a line cook and yada yada. And I had developed like 12 freaking NPCs. And in developing 12 NPCs, because I enjoy storytelling, enjoy making little side quests, there was an entire story where essentially the kitchen staff was going after who would be the next head chef after the chef retired. None of my players spoke to the kitchen staff. I wasted hours of development. But that is what's required for the illusion of choice. Now, my thing is that where my mistake was and go back to our podcast about building foundations. I hadn't fully baked my cake yet before I started putting on the frosting. And so I kind of had this half-baked frosted cake that wasn't very good. It was not a great story, and this is a recent one. I mean, you're still going to have stories that just don't work out. But now I'm developing, so my players are right now in a story, and I know Brian's probably going to tell a story, Aaron's probably going to tell a story, and then I'm already creating the next game. I'm already in development, and when I mean I'm in development, I mean like I have fully baked this cake. This cake is ready to go. If Aaron and Brian were like, tomorrow, let's do this. Awesome, let me slap in some music and I'm good to go, because right now I'm putting on that frosting. But I learned from my mistake. When I created Route C, I didn't dive too far into that rabbit hole. And I so they can go talk to this person's, I don't know, best friend. They can go talk to this person's best friend. Does the best friend have a ton of information and a ton of backstory? No, because right now I'm focusing on music. Right now, when I'm doing my frosting, I'm focusing on the music frosting. Now, if I still have more time afterwards, I'll go back and do the best friend a little bit more.
The other cheat you can do there is if you need them to just get on the path, you can let some other critical NPC that they should have talked to, just become the best friend effectively.
Effectively, you can.
Yes.
You can swap in and out NPCs and capability of knowledge.
Yeah.
And again, your players are none the wiser. Remember, you have this GM screen. Just remember that when you are doing this, remember that they can't see behind your screen. They can't see you say, okay, to get to this point, they need to talk to Orloff the wizard, or Sandoval the ranger, or they need to talk to NPC A, B, or C, and your players are like, they keep on talking to NPC D. They won't go see A, B, or C. It takes nothing for you to say, oh, you know what? No matter who they choose, they're going to get the information from A because they needed to get back on the right track. So then they go, finally D is like, well, you really need to talk to NPC C. Your players then go, okay, we're going off to C. No matter what, they're getting the information from NPC A because they need it. You're doing it for the betterment of the story, for the betterment of them. So put aside that initial shock and emotion of like, oh my God, taking away choice of my players, and remember that you're doing it so that they smile and have a great time and get that spotlight moment. You're doing it so Tommy has the ability to finally be a paladin, to have that paladin moment, because he hasn't had one in 5 sessions to be the paladin. Give them that moment. Understand that the illusion of choice is so that they get their time to shine. You are giving them the best way that's going to increase their fun, increase their happiness, increase your fun, your happiness. And that's why you're doing it. That's why you're giving the illusion of choice, is to bring more fun. I think I've said that like 6 times in this episode.
You have. Do you have anything else you want to add to this?
No, I'm good.
Okay, perfect.
Repeated myself 6 times. I'm good.
Yeah. So, anyways, Jared did bring up one thing in the episode, which was kind of his evolution as a storyteller. We do have a future topic coming up on that, and not just the evolution of his storytelling, but the evolution of how kind of we went from story to story and the different types of stories we told and story development.
We're going to tell you about like when we were, I don't know, 10, 12.
And we were doing mercenaries
for millions of dollars.
Yes, it's going to be a great episode. We're probably going to be laughing up and down the episode with that one.
Remember when Steve came up with his own currency, like where one cost like $10 million?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we're going to get into, ladies and gentlemen. One coin was $10 million, and he would offer us 5,000 of these coins. we had no concept of money as kids. For us, a comic book was 50 cents, and we didn't know how much it cost to buy a house or a country.
And here's a preview of the story that we're going to be telling you. So anyway, stay tuned for that one down the line.
We could have bought Russia. I'm sorry, with that amount of money. Okay, go on.
Anyways, if you like the podcast, which I'm hoping you do if you stayed around for this long, you've been listening to the last, 45 episodes or so, go ahead and follow us on Facebook, share it with a friend, share it on Facebook, give it to your other gaming group. If you have a gaming store that you go to, tell the guy about it, have him try to promote it for us. Word of mouth is really the greatest way to kind of promote the podcast. Otherwise, go ahead and rate us on your favorite podcast site. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. You can send us questions at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or on the Facebook site. However you want to get a hold of us, we're happy to answer your questions, happy to talk about your topics, and we hope you're enjoying the episodes. But for Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, guys.
Have a great week, everyone.